other things and interests that your spouse is involved in. And it's kind of hard because, our culture just promotes this whole feeling of independence. Everyone is just, should be independent and be able to do what they want to do and have their lives. And, and we also like to think that we can have our separate lives, but also be in a marriage and connect in a marriage. And that's kind of hard to do. If you are someone who is living Christian life and you want to have a marriage built on that kind of a foundation, a Christian foundation, then it's hard to say on one hand, yes, I'm independent and I have, all of these interests and all these things and all these hobbies that I do, but then I'm also married over here and I'm also, all in 100% in my marriage and and into my husband. It's hard to put the two together. And that will spark somewhat of like a crazy cycle, because you'll be fighting yourself over here trying to be independent, but then also on this end, you're fighting yourself because you need to be invested in your marriage or you'll lose your marriage, So in marriage, it's important that we don't, although there are things, it's definitely important to have interest, to have personal things that you're interested in and that you're excited about. Although it's very important, it's important that we don't let those things outweigh our spouse, the person that God brought into our lives. We cannot dismiss them. We cannot overlook them. We cannot let these interests become more important than the person that we're married to. And that might mean that we have to take a step back from some of those things and reevaluate what we're doing and reevaluate our priorities. And I honestly think that that's something that we should be doing anyway in marriage. Every few years, you need to look and see what it is that you're doing in your sort of individual life that you can set aside to make more time for your family and for your husband, and building up your marriage. So yeah, I mean, it's harder now because there's a lot of people who talk about being independent in marriage and how they as women run the marriage and they run their household and they're CEOs of their house and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that's great if that works for you, but in my marriage and in my house, my husband is, in charge. He's the one that makes sure that everyone is happy, makes sure that everyone is fed, provided for, and that's how our family works. So when you have this culture that lives for that independence, it really takes a strong person to step back and say, independence is not, being an independent woman and all of that is not going to work in my marriage. You come together and you work together, and your husband should be the head of the house. So kind of getting off subject a little bit, but going back to the topic, I mean, you when you see that you are hi cutie when you see, or cute pie chan, hi. What about men who are very passive and indecisive? Hey Vicky. Passive and indecisive, if so it sounds like in that relationship, the wife or you are the one that's usually maybe not the aggressor, maybe that's not the right word, but the person that's making the decisions in the home. Well, in those kinds of situations, as I always say, it's really important that we're praying for our husbands, and that this is an area clearly that you see is he has room to grow. He has room to make some changes in how he handles your family. So I mean, obviously you shouldn't be telling him you need to be more aggressive, you need to make some decisions around here, be more firm. I don't think you should address him in that way, but I do think there are ways that you can give him opportunities to take a firm stand. So when it comes to dinner, things even as small as deciding on what's for dinner, You can ask him, let me know what you want for dinner, or can you let me know where you want to go for dinner, or just things like that where you're forcing him to make a decision. Um, you know, make more of those opportunities available to him. Make more of those opportunities present where you're making him have to decide one way or another. If it's furniture, make him make him decide what piece of furniture you guys have. What if I love Jesus more than him? Want someone who leads to God passionately. You should love Jesus more than you love your husband or your whomever. You should love Jesus more than you love anyone. It's God first, and then you won't be able to show your husband love if you don't love God. It'll only last for so long. Sometimes all it takes is for the woman to make decision in order for him to see he's slacking. Sometimes, but I think, I would say, I guess I would say that my only problem with that is it can lead to the husband feeling like that he's not needed. When a man feels like he's not needed, then insecurity grows. And when insecurity grows, then there is the feeling of a lack of respect. So I would be careful about just making the decision and hoping that he sees how you were able to make that great decision, because there are, men, some men might say, oh yeah, that was great. But I think a lot of men with ego, because there's always ego, I think for a lot of men, most men, they may start to feel a little bit of insecurity and a little bit of, gosh, she doesn't need me. She can make her own decision. And not that he married you because he thought you needed him and you were just, couldn't do anything on your own. But I mean, it will put some thoughts in his head and make him feel like, well, it's just kind of like a seed that you're planting. And you want to build your husband up. So I would say any opportunity you can take to involve him in the decision making, if it's something like buying groceries, whatever, clearly that's not necessary for him to be involved in. But when it comes to some of the more, hey Nick, when it comes to some of the more important decisions at home, that's true. That's why I say sometimes, but we do have to be careful with what battles you choose, or choosing your battles is super important. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily just jump out and make decisions, especially without talking with him about it first. Just like I said, because it can lead to him feeling a little bit maybe disrespected, or like you don't need him, and men need to feel needed. They need to feel needed. Husbands, I'll say husbands need to feel needed in the home. So anyway, so I hope that helps, Vicki. I know your question was about husbands that are not as strong when it comes to taking their lead as a husband. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let's see. Yeah. So, we're talking about roommates and how you fall into that roommate trap sometimes in marriage, and how it's important to make sure that you're doing those small things that you were doing when you got married, and that you're not just kind of ditching those efforts, because you don't want your marriage to end up just a passing and going, checking in and checking out. How to keep him from straying from the relationship. There isn't a way to keep your husband or your boyfriend from straying. Yes, Vicki, leadership can be hard for a lot of men, especially if they're not someone who grew up with a father figure in their home. Cute, back to your question. There isn't a way to keep your husband or your boyfriend from straying. If he's going to stray, if he's going to stray, he's going to stray. There's nothing, that you can do to prevent that. That needs to be something in him, or he realizes that he doesn't want to be with anyone else, that he doesn't want to go anywhere else, where he, if you're talking about marriage, that's even a little bit deeper. It's nice to say that, Christian men don't stray and Christian men are, but we all know that that's not always the case, that both Christian and non-believers have strayed. They've gone outside their marriage. And so all you can really do is continue to pray for him, continue to pray that he's being fulfilled in Christ. He needs to keep his prayer life up too. If he's really, trying to be the head of your life, head of your house and provide for you, he should, that shouldn't be on his list of priorities. Looking for affection or whatever elsewhere shouldn't be on his list of priorities. I will say, though, that as a wife, it is our duty to make sure that all our husband's needs are met, in an intimate way. So, if that's what you're sort of alluding to, then yes, we need to make sure that we are meeting our husband's needs, and continue to pray over him. Any of those questions that you have, you're not sure about, his role in your family, meaning he's not taking a strong role as a man, we need to pray over those things. You guys, I don't have all the answers. I really don't. I just know what's worked for me and us over these almost 10 years. But and truly, you guys, honestly and truly, prayer has worked for us in every time. You guys, every time we've had any kind of a situation, prayer has always worked. And it's not an immediate thing. It's not like, oh, I pray today and tomorrow Jesus did it, but we consistently pray. Thanks, Decadent Noob. We are consistently praying, and things, they just work out. They just work out. Maybe we're asking for $10,000. We may not get the $10,000 tomorrow, but God puts people in our lives to help us build a team. So continue to pray, you guys, over your relationships, and pray that God restores the intimacy and the emotional connections that you had when you were dating, when you were, in those newlywed stages. Because it was so easy back then, right? It was so easy to just be lay in the bed and you smelling each other's morning breath and nobody's complaining. You know what I mean? But it takes more effort as marriage progresses. It takes more effort for you to do those things that you were doing before. If you're, if you were taking her flowers to work before you guys were married, do it again. Do it tomorrow. Bring her some flowers. Send some flowers to her job. And you know what? I'll tell you a little quick confession. I don't even like flowers. But the reason that women like to get flowers at work is so that everybody around us can see that we have a good husband that sends us flowers at work. So guys, just do those little things that, yes, it's definitely worth it, Nick. Do those little things that you did before. Surprise her with something good. Surprise her with some ice cream or something like that. You should never be scared to get married. And if you are, then you shouldn't get married. If you aren't fully, if you're not fully convinced that God's brought your mate, your soulmate, you're the man into your life that you should be with forever, then don't marry him. Simple as that. Don't marry him, because you'll end up with a lifetime of regret. You'll end up unhappy. You'll end up not only unhappy, but unhappy looking in somebody else's face that you don't want to look at for the rest of your life. So just make sure that you're doing the things that you were doing before. Do those things that your spouse enjoys, that your spouse likes. Surprise him every now and then. And those little things help to keep the spark, help to keep you guys interested in each other and all of that, because it's easy to lose interest, you guys, especially these days with so much competing for our attention, social media, Periscope, so just keep doing those things, and because you don't want to fall into the roommate trap. You don't want to fall into the roommate trap where you're just coming and going and clocking in and clocking out sort of thing. I don't like flowers either. Snack surprises